Your seat. Welcome. Today is Sunday, September 11th. Great pleasure to have all of you present here in person at the TSS, as well as all of those who are joining us via Facebook and the FEB TV. It's a great pleasure to be here together, to learn, to listen, to study, to contemplate the beautiful lessons that Spiritism gives to us. September is the month of vices and virtues. We like to talk about our virtues, not so much about our vices. But today, it's a good day, because today, Tiago will be presenting his thoughts on the virtues of a Spiritist person. So, before we get started, I would like to ask Mark Malhães to come and do initial reading and prayer. I'll be back at the end with some news about what's happening at the TSS. But please relax, sit down, enjoy, and take on the beautiful lessons that are about to be given to us. Thank you.
I'm going to be reading a passage from the book Happy Life by Divaldo and Joana de Angelis. There's a sun shining within you. It is the presence of Christ in your heart. Do not let the clouds of a bad mood, rebelliousness, or dissatisfaction obscure its brightness. The light that comes from outside shines, but it casts a shadow when confronted with obstacle of any kind. Your inner sun never provokes darkness, because it illuminates from inside to outside in abundant jets. With love as its fuel, your light will become more and more powerful, shining, blessed in all directions. So let your light shine everywhere. With this message in mind, let us all this moment elevate our minds and our thoughts to our Master Jesus, our Father, Mother God, who bless us in every single moment with this jets of lights, this brightness that shines everywhere. Let each one of our hearts shine the same frequency of love, of gratitude, so we can learn about our virtues and how to overcome our vices, how to be better. Let us all mentally send good vibrations to our speaker today, Tiago, so he, with the help of our many workers of the spiritual world, help deliver the message to so many of us that are present here or through the internet or in the spiritual world. Thank you all, and so be it. Tiago, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I must say that we are all virtuous people already, because we made the effort to come here. We have overcame our desire to stop by the beaches and still enjoy a little bit more of the summer that is almost over. So I must tell you, that is already a great thing for all of us to make that movement to be here. And I must say that that movement that we make when we search for something good is very important for us, and we need to keep that movement going within us, because as the message this morning was that was given to us shows, that it is a light that shines from within us, and that's what virtue is all about. And then we're going to understand a little bit what those virtues are, how to develop them, and what is the outcome of the practice of those virtues in our lives. First of all, we have a very important lesson from Allan Kardec in the Gospel according to Spiritism. And he tells us about what is to be a good Spiritist. And we can expand that statement not only for the Spiritists, but for us as people. How to be good people. And he says that the true Spiritists are recognized for their moral transformation and the efforts that they make to overcome their evil inclinations, or I would say their imperfections. Here, we don't see anything talking about perfection. We don't see anything talking about the absence of an imperfection. But instead, we are directly related with the effort that we make and that movement that we make internally to overcome what we have that is still imperfect. Because probably from last week, we may understand that the vices still, for our level of evolution, they are still part of our beings. We still full of imperfections. And that these many incarnations that we have and the many experiences that we have and the challenges that we face in our lives have to do with the opportunities that God is giving to us to overcome those imperfections and to grow spiritually, acquiring more virtues by our own effort. So, let's start from the basics. What exactly is virtue? Since the antiquity, the philosophers will discuss about virtues. And one of the most important philosophers in our Western world that helped a lot to shape the understanding that we have of life today and also about virtue, it was Socrates and his disciples, Plato and Aristotle. Those very important philosophers, they discussed a lot about what virtue is. And the origin of the word virtue comes from virtus, which means a value, which means a merit and a moral perfection. Right away from here, I would like to point out that word, moral. We are, as Spiritists, we know that in our evolution, we need to develop our intellectuality, we need to know, and also we need to develop our morality, which is the ability to discern good and bad and the practice of the good for ourselves and for others. And since old times, we are here talking about our moral qualities, our merits that we need to develop. So the moral qualities that we have, that we talk a lot in Spiritism, they have directly everything to do with virtues. They are, in fact, the virtues. So, back almost 500 years before Christ came to earth, Socrates already talked about virtue being knowledge. And some of his disciples would go further. They would say that it is not only the knowledge, but it is the practice of the knowledge and the application of the knowledge in our lives that will grant us, in fact, happiness. We all know from Jesus and from the teachings that we receive from the gospel that happiness is not of this world. But the search for happiness is of this world. It is our job in order to search for that happiness. And practicing the virtues is the way to search for happiness in our lives. And the first step, of course, in terms of knowledge, the first step is about knowing ourselves. Knowing who we are. Knowing why we are here. And understanding what do I have of qualities and also what do I have of imperfections that I need to better myself with. And that's why it makes so much sense, even more now, when Allan Kardec tells us that the true Spiritists are the ones that make the effort to overcome their evil inclinations, which means first of all, we need to know what are our evil inclinations. Somehow we would say befriend those shadows that we have in ourselves in order to bring them to light, in order to make the transformation that we need to make, in order to find happiness within ourselves and in our lives. And in Spiritism, of course, developing the Christian ideas, the Spiritism comes to unveil some of the messages that were given in a not as clear way, and also being given in a way that the people back in the time 2000 years ago would understand. The Spiritism come as the legion of spirits developing those ideas that Christ brought to us, many of them as seeds. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, the spirits will tell us that in its higher expression, the virtue encompasses all the essential qualities that comprise a good person. So everything that would represent qualities of a good person will be then the virtues. And I just made in bold those few words: to be good, to be charitable, and another word very important for us right here in terms of virtue. One is about moral, and the other one is about charity. To be charitable, hardworking, reasonable, and modest are qualities of a virtuous individual. So, in very brief words, a summary of what virtue would be is described in that phrase for us. Now, sounds very easy to read. Still, when I was reading myself, I was asking myself, well, those are beautiful words. Do I have them? How to achieve that? That would be the next step in my personal opinion. What is to be good? What is charity? How do I practice charity? What do I need to develop in myself in order to be able to feel myself as a more virtuous person tomorrow than today? Well, that's where we're going to tackle right now. And for that, there is no one better than Jesus. In the question 625 of the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec asks the Spirit, what is the best model that we can have today in our lives in order to mirror ourselves, in order to grow spiritually? And the answer is very clear. It is Jesus. So he is the living example of morals. He is the living example of goodness. Therefore, he is the living example of virtues for us to learn from. And Jesus gave us among the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful and clear and important examples of how to be a more virtuous person in this world, facing all the challenges that we face in our lives. He is our model and our guide by excellence. No other spirit had the spiritual hierarchy that Jesus had for us. And Jesus commands the direction of this planet and of all our incarnations. And his lessons, in fact, are living examples of virtues for us. Jesus taught us in many different ways. So all of his sermon, his parables, his stories, somehow when we read them and when we put our heart to comprehend them, they will touch us in different ways. Jesus taught us with lessons that would touch all of us no matter when in time we would read them. Therefore, they are timeless. They are the most essential, universal messages of happiness for us. And approaching ourselves to the messages of Jesus are an absolutely essential way for us. in order to be closer to what virtue is. Not only his teachings, but his own examples. Every person that he met, every question that he answered, every challenge, how he faced all those challenges, are what we call living examples. Because his own posture, his own manners, when he was relating with people, they are in itself examples of excellence of how to be virtuous. But of course that he gave to us the means to comprehend what are those virtues and how to develop them. And for that, how to understand a little bit of those virtues and what are those for Jesus and for us as Spiritists, we are going to use one specific lesson that Jesus gave us, which was the Sermon of the Mount. Actually, the entire gospel, all his conversations, even with his own disciples, all his prayers with God, with our Father, were examples of virtues. But the Sermon of the Mount will basically bring the substract, the most fundamental lessons that we can have in order to understand how to put in practice those virtues in our lives. So the first one, when we are reading the Sermon of the Mount, which is called as well the Beatitudes, in the book of Matthew, in the chapter 5, when Jesus goes to the mount and all the people are around him, he looks to everyone and he says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So then I say, what does this have to do with virtues? In Spiritism, we understand that the pure in spirit are the humble. When we practice humbleness, when we don't put ourselves as more or less than anyone else, when we try to find exactly our place in this world, when we relate to others as equals, not as superiors, we are practicing the humbleness. When we refrain from being proud, as a very serious vice that we all have, when we feel that we are superior, that we have more value than others, but when we practice the humbleness, we put ourselves in a lower sphere, because in fact, when we see ourselves as learners in this life, when we see ourselves as still imperfect and we have a long journey ahead of us, we are then practicing the humbleness. That would be probably the second step. The first one is about knowing ourselves, and the second one is to really comprehending and taking that place where we are and walking in a much more simple way, trying to feel ourselves exactly where we are, befriending ourselves in that way. Because this is very important for us, otherwise there will be no chance for transformation. If we don't accept that we have to change, we won't ever. The second one would be the resignation on our afflictions. And Jesus said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who hunger for and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." When we suffer, we have an opportunity to learn. Every one of us suffers. The most important thing here is how we suffer. We don't need to try to avoid the sufferings that we cannot avoid, Of course, we can try to avoid what we don't need to go through, but when we suffer and when we try, but still the situations in our lives bring us pain, we have a couple of options, right? We can revolt against the circumstance. Some people might blame others for their suffering. But Jesus is telling us, embrace that pain, because it is the opportunity that we have to go through that feeling in order to transform ourselves internally. The resignation here is a movement of the heart not to be revolted against anything. Some would go even further, blaming God, because if God is all goodness, why He lets me suffer? But when we resign ourselves, as spirits, we understand that good part of that suffering that we're going through today is consequence of our own actions. And instead of a punishment, this pain of today, it is the opportunity for us to recover and rehabilitate from the imperfections of yesterday that probably caused pain and suffering to others as well. That probably didn't bring us any happiness. And then we are facing a natural consequence of our actions. Learning with those suffering episodes in our lives will also help us to avoid them in the future. Every time that we go through suffering, and if we resign, our spirit will remember the source of that suffering. And in the future, when we are faced with those circumstances again, we will have the opportunity to make another decision. The transformation here is very concrete. We can make different decisions. We can act differently with ourselves, with others, in order not to suffer, first of all, and of course, to search for more happiness in our lives. The next one will be about the trust in God, the faith, and the perseverance. When we have faith, that means that we have knowledge of cause, knowing. And that faith, it is not a knowledge simply about reading something. It is about an inner comprehension of who we are, of our source, as simple and ignorant spirits created all equally by God, with all the opportunities in order to reach the perfection and the happiness that we all aspire to reach. When we persevere, we are able to face those difficult moments and not give up in the first suffering. The worst thing for us as spirits is to be stuck in our evolution. And one way is giving up. Many times we lose the ability to foresee the future as immortal spirits. Then we give up today and we search for alternatives to shorten our sufferings, which are absolutely against the law that was given to us. We were created to perfect ourselves. Every time that we give up, we lose time in order to perfect ourselves. We need to recover with much more effort, and we need to spend much more energy in order to go back to the path of evolution every time that we let ourselves be taken down by difficult moments. Again, many of those difficult moments were created by us. Therefore, we are the ones learning how to bring them to harmony again in order to keep walking forward in our path of evolution. And trust in God, which actually it is a consequence of our humbleness, of our humility, facing all the providence that is given to us, and all the universe is, that is much more than we can control, much more than we can understand, and also some of those difficult moments that we're going through in our lives, sometimes we don't understand them. But if we trust that there is a reason for things to happen in our lives, we will not fall into despair. We will know that if there is difficulty, there is also a solution. And if there is a solution, there is overcoming. And there is happiness. And there is a brighter tomorrow for us. We are all spirits in evolution. If we understand that we are here to go through those challenges because they, in this moment in our existence, is important for us, it will make our lives much better already. The next virtue that Jesus taught us in the Sermon on the Mount is when he says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And what meekness is? What is to be meek? It is to be docile, to be affable, not to be, as Allan Kardec said, ill-tempered, not to be aggressive. It is to act in our lives in a more sweet way. And here is interesting. It doesn't mean that we need to use all that extreme sweetness and embellish words in any possible way. It is about ourselves being able to see something sweeter in the bitterness of life sometimes. For some would say, let's face those situations with, and not feed more aggressivity. Let's not feed more difficulty in our lives. Let's act in a way that we don't carry more problems for ourselves. To have a sweeter word with one another. Instead of responding to rude tones from other people that reflect sometimes their own suffering. To transform that and to give something different. To not respond in the same way when we see that people are bitter with us, are aggressive with us, are rude with us. When we are able to see something better in someone else, even when the only thing that they are giving to us is ugly. When the other thing that they are telling us is ugly. And we can give something different for them. It is difficult. When we talk about virtues, we talk about something really beautiful. When we start getting deep in what virtue is, we understand that the challenges are greater than we imagined before. To respond something rude with something sweet is extremely difficult. Possible? Yes. When we start to understand that sometimes what comes to us is not being directly given to us. It is simply because someone like me has also bad days, has also difficulties, is also suffering. And the only thing that they can give to us is that. And then we understand how many people, when they are treating us with so much affability, we may go back home and sometimes think, well, those persons were so sweet with us. Who knows? They may be giving to us the opportunity to see something different. We may be giving them something very harsh as well. And then we learn with that as well. This is also a virtue. And the next lesson would be when Jesus tells us, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." Here it is interesting. Different versions of the gospel would say, "Blessed are the peace-loving," and some other ones would say, "Blessed are the peacemaking." And I think the distinction is very crucial here. I may be peace-loving, but I may not be a peacemaker or a peace giver. To love peace doesn't mean to live in peace. Even less to give peace or to be a peacemaker. Conflicts are normal in our lives. In a very day-to-day life, in our families, with our relatives, with our siblings, sons, daughters, cousins, co-workers. We love peace, but we are ready for battle sometimes. We already come with our guards up, with our armor, when we are going to relate with people. And we are still doing that in the name of peace many times. It's like, I am a peaceful person, but don't touch me. And then you see this all going, down the drain. Right? No, I don't start anything, but I finish the conflicts. It's so easy for us to say and to do things like that. But the movement of peacemaking is an inner discipline. It is the education of our spirit. It is the education of our emotions. It is understanding and harnessing our emotions. Not let them create the conflict that we are wanting to avoid. Today, when we see tragedies, wars, conflicts, they are derived from the emotions that are taking us over. In our daily lives, the conflicts that we live are consequence of our emotions taking us over. We are the ones that can transform our emotions. We are all emotional beings, but they are part of us. They cannot dominate us. Otherwise, it will be the instinct. From the instinct, there we go for the vices back again. The virtue is the education of our sentiments, the education of our emotions, in order to promote that peace and that harmony that we want to see happening. It is up to us. And a very important virtue, very important, when Jesus says, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." And here we have the forgiveness. That is a very easy one, right? We are all very forgiving people. Every time that we are driving to TSS, we are so happy. Finally, I'm going to get there, learn so many good things. And someone cuts me off. There goes my forgiveness. Right? If I am going to leave and then someone calls me, there goes it all. If I come very happy to work, someone steps on my foot. There goes my happiness. Someone is having a bad day, gives me a bad word, and I'm just cursing them in return. Forgiveness. Remember when Jesus said, right? Give the other cheek. The Spiritism will develop that idea of give peace against hatred, right? Give love against rage. Give forgiveness against the aggressive attacks from others. Forgiveness is a virtue by excellence when, again, in educating ourselves, educating our feelings, we understand that others are also imperfect as I am myself. And the person sometimes who is the most difficult to forgive. It is that very person when you wake up. No, it is not someone that is beside you. It is the person when you go to the mirror and you look at. And then you have a hard time forgiving them. When we look to ourselves and we blame ourselves sometimes for problems that are happening. We don't take the opportunity to look to us and understand that, hey, yes, I still have a ways to go. If I don't forgive myself, if I blame myself, I'm going to be taken by guilt. And then I will also kill the opportunity to grow. When I forgive myself, I make peace with myself. I will be a self-peacemaker. And being in peace with myself, I will be in peace what I have that is not that good. And then I can see it. And I can see myself as someone with virtues and with vices, with qualities and with imperfections. And then I will be able to change them. And when I'm able to forgive myself, I will be able to forgive others. I will just excuse myself and take a peek here. I will read for you the question 886 of the Spirit's book. Because Allan Kardec asks the spirits, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? And the answer is very short. Benevolence towards everyone. Indulgence towards the imperfections of others. And forgiveness of all offenses. Here we are, the spirits rectifying the lessons that Jesus gave us. To be benevolent, to be indulgent, to be forgiving is a virtue. And remember the Our Father that many of us pray. Forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. The forgiveness is in proportion. And that's why Jesus said, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. This is all there, my friends. We have that. We say that. Some of us say that every day. When we put this in practice, it makes much more sense. Those words gain value here within us. And finally, Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. The purity in heart is the merit of the superior spirits. And it was one of the last lessons that he would give, Jesus. But he wanted to show us that in practicing the virtues, we will purify ourselves. When Jesus said that they will see God, we're not talking about seeing God with the eyes of the body. We are talking about seeing God with the eyes of the heart. Feeling the love of God within us. Feeling that the laws, the divine laws that we've learned in the beginning of this year, they are alive and there for us to put them in practice and live and abide by them. When we purify ourselves, we only see good in everyone. We are able to transform the worst possible feelings in the most precious energy for transformation. We are able to recycle spiritually. We use all that energy that we have that is raw. And that's why I chose to put in the beginning of the lecture the image of that diamond in the middle of those rocks. We are brute, precious stones. That the incarnations, the challenges, the difficulties are shaping us, are lapidating us. And more we purify ourselves, we are able to reflect the light like the diamond. Not only reflecting that light, but making that spectrum of all beautiful colors, which means that we can radiate those qualities and those virtues everywhere, touching everyone around us. And that's what Jesus is telling us. That is our destiny. That is our final goal. So he's giving us the teaser, the little taste of what we will achieve in putting those virtues in practice. Our spiritual evolution is based on educating ourselves, overcoming our limitations, exterminating our vices from our hearts, and developing our virtues. Today, because we are imperfect beings, the practice of virtue demands work. The pure in heart live the virtues as their daily lives. Like we wake up and dress and go to work and eat. Today, in our current situation, to put virtues in practice is a challenge. We need to understand that there is no way out. If it is too easy, there is a good chance that we are not doing that well. If we're not facing challenges, if we're not facing resistance and negative feedback from others, sometimes when we change our attitude towards something. We were teenagers, we all partied, we had our university times, we used to be more laid back, and then we change a little bit. We don't see our friends for a couple of years, and then suddenly we meet again. And then we decided not to go that deep in all those parties and everything. We decided to be a little lighter, and then someone comes, come on, I remember you. You know, you were not like that. Come on, what happened with you? This is a big challenge for some of us. To get rid of old habits is not easy. Not only from ourselves, but also from the environment where we live, with people that are as imperfect as us. We are very close to each other in that sense. Some of these qualities we are already developing, some other ones we are not. And we are slowly, step by step, putting them in practice, overcoming certain imperfections, giving up from certain habits that we have. Those habits to speak about others, and the gossip here, and the anger there, the resentment against people, and holding grudges all the time, not speaking with our partner because they did something so small. And then we look at and we are wasting a little bit of time to forgive, to open ourselves. The consequence sometimes is not very clear and is not immediate. To practice virtue doesn't give us an immediate recognition, an immediate reward. The reward is to be able to live by it day after day. To do good for the sake of doing good is in itself an opportunity that some of us sometimes are still far from understanding really. We live in this life that everything is based on exchange, on reward, on giving back. So if I don't see immediately the result of that change, it might be difficult to hold it. But we are going to persevere because this is a virtue. We will continue. The practice of virtue will give us the hope. Jesus tells us this all the time. The spirits came to us developing the understanding of only with the reincarnation, one after the other, we are going to see the results of the good that we do today. Our journey of evolution is slow and steady if we make it so. Having hope that our afflictions of today are going to pay off tomorrow when we are able to live more free, more light, more loving, when we are going to live in an environment with people that are going to have more mutual respect and fraternity, forgiveness. That is a work of hope, because still it is very easy for us to give in. It is difficult to move forward with that, but it's absolutely necessary for us to live this. And the Spiritism, which is Christ relived through the words of the superior spirits that gave us and helped to explain about all of those lessons, they are talking to us about hope. We are spirits in evolution. We must understand that. We will face those difficulties pure and simply. If we go to the book Heaven and Hell, we have incredible lessons about the consequences of the practice or not of virtues, showing that all of us are evolving, that many of those virtues were not very easy for some of those spirits to put in practice, but some of them, after discarnating, come back to give us news. How was the result of the practice of those virtues? Especially in the first part of the first communications of the second part of the book, when we receive communications from happy spirits, from spirits that even suffering during incarnate life, even being abandoned by friends, even being betrayed, even having so many difficulties, physical, emotional, financial, social, family, when they lived those events, putting those virtues in practice, the results were a state of bliss and happiness, that they were so happy to come to us and tell us about all of that, because they are telling all of us, persevere in all of this. It will pay off. And they are the moral code to guide us. They are the moral code, the practice of the good for all of us. And I will just excuse myself very quickly to bring just a few points from the Gospel according to Spiritism. In the chapter 17, that is called Be Perfect, there is one specific topic that is called moral persons. And then let's think that it is like the Sermon of the Mount, but brought to us from the point of view of the Spiritism. And the message it is almost a bullet point of virtues that we can put in practice. It is about faith in God, faith in the future. It is about knowing the vicissitudes, the difficulties of life, having a sentiment of charity, find their satisfaction in the benefits they spread around. That is the doing good for the sake of doing good. To be kind, to be humane and benevolent. Regarding race, regarding creed, regarding social positions, they are all temporary. We are all spirits. Respect, indulgence, never taking pleasure or taking benefit on the imperfections of others. Studying our own imperfections. Don't seek to exalt ourselves. The humbleness. In other part of this book, the spirits will tell us that it's better less virtue with more modesty than more virtue with less modesty, because the pride will kill all the other virtues that we have. And then goes on. I invite you all for the chapter called Be Perfect. Please. So, as we spoke about that, how can we achieve those virtues? How can we put them in practice? Being charitable, being humble, being benevolent and indulgent, loving our neighbors as we love ourselves. Ultimately, it is the practice of love. Some of my teachers in Spiritism clearly told me, what is charity? we have the answer from the Spirit's book, and they said something beautiful. Charity is love in action. So to love. Let's love. Do to others what you want others to do to us. Love your enemies. Forgive their offenses. Remember, we talk about enemies here. Who is our enemy? If not our neighbor. Who hurts us? Is someone that is far away? No. He's who is very close to us. You need to be close to hurt. Therefore, there is a reason for us to be close. It's to learn how to forgive, to learn how to tolerate, to learn how to understand their imperfections, to learn how to live together, to be more fraternal. And practice the good without ostentation. Doing good for the sake of doing good. Not letting our left hand see what our right hand does. Very important. If we are doing good for others to see, we're not doing good. We want others to see us. We want others to see us as better than sometimes we are. And judging ourselves before judging others. Therefore, let's not judge. Right? We can judge our actions. Let's not judge the person. We can judge, evaluate situations. But let's not judge, let's not put certain values that actually belong to us in others. They might be going through something that we may not even handle going through if we were in their shoes. Putting ourselves in other shoes. There it is. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spirits will tell us, be good and charitable. That's the key to heaven you hold in your hands. All the bliss of eternity is contained in this maxim. Love one another. Jesus told us that in many different ways. Love your neighbor as yourself. Do to others what you want others to do to you. And love one another like I have loved you. Thinking about love as something that represents the purity of heart that Jesus has, reflecting the love of our Father to all of us. Charity is the fundamental virtue that must uphold the entire edifice of earthly virtues. It sums up all the virtues. It is a big passage. I don't expect anyone just to read everything, and I will not read everything with you, just point out. There's a beautiful passage in the Bible, the first letter to Corinthians, when the apostle Paul would say, even if I spoke the tongues of the angels, if I had no charity, I would be nothing. And the same apostle Paul, in spirit, came and gave this beautiful message, talking about the charity again. Without charity, there is no salvation. We know that salvation here means the freedom from our imperfections, is the spiritual growth, liberating ourselves from the ties of earthly pleasures and temptations and everything that ties us and doesn't let us free ourselves spiritually. And the most important part here that I took was, it is necessary to have an active virtue. Talking about virtues, like I'm doing here, is beautiful. Doesn't mean that I am a virtuous person because I'm here talking about that. No. If I don't live here, if I live here and I don't put them in practice, that would mean nothing. I could speak, like Paul said, the tongue of the angels. I can speak the most beautiful words here for you. I can profess. I can bring the beautiful messages from the superior spirits. But I am still an imperfect instrument of their love because I'm not putting them in practice, that will mean absolutely nothing. In order to mean something for us and for others, we will have an active virtue. And just to end, from the philosopher Plato, disciple of Socrates, he said, all the gold which is under or upon the earth is not enough to give in exchange for virtue. No earthly quality will beat the smallest of the virtues in our lives. Jesus told us we are the salt of the earth. We are the light of the world. But he also said, don't let this light be hidden. Let's put that light out. We are that light. We have that light to shine from within ourselves and expand ourselves towards everyone and towards everything. How do we do that? Having an active virtue, putting those qualities in action in our lives and make them develop. So then we can be our own models and our own examples, imitating Jesus. And then we can be a model for everyone else. So then we're going to live much better in our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tiago. Got a couple of minutes for questions. Everybody's so timid. Otto.
Sometimes
Louder.
Sometimes when we are on a daily basis, we have temptations, we have things that happen, like even during work. So you have someone invite you to go for beers, to go for other things that may take you away from the path. And I believe that the virtues that you just explained are kind of against some of those things happening. How do we deal with those situations that we can't really avoid, or in some cases you have to play with, because otherwise you will be out of the society in the end? That's I don't know if you understood the question, but it's basically...
Yeah, peer pressure.
Yeah.
What's the answer? Peer pressure.
Absolutely. One day, someone that I believe that was wise told me, a crow doesn't fly together with the finches. We are not far from those temptations. We may give them to others as well without even realizing. First of all, it is understanding where we are. We don't need to just give leaps in our evolution that we're not going to be able to sustain tomorrow. If we are able to at least gauge that, it's like, yes, I can go out with you, but later, not now. I just need to finish that first, and I will go give in to a little bit. We cannot just take some of those habits that we have, such as a limb from ourselves. This process is very slow, but this is also an eye-opener for us, because it shows us where we are. What we're going to do today will have consequence for tomorrow, but it's not that we're going to need to just give in from living a social life. There is nothing wrong or some of the things that we live in society today. But our idea is to put them in a context that we're going to live our lives and we're going to grow, and slowly seeing what we can give up from in our lives. We are all together. We live in society. We must live this life, and that's why we are here. There is no way. If we were not tempted by all of that, we would be in a much happier world for sure. But trying to put that in perspective and not let it take over. Understanding that is part of life, but don't let this dominate you as an addiction, for instance. The addictions are the most critical of those examples. But yes, we do have those habits that we know that maybe pure, simple joys of daily life, that is not going to take us anywhere tomorrow. But let's go slowly, replacing them with something different tomorrow or another day.
The diamond in the rough is the best analogy for that. We live in an imperfect world. Everywhere we go is imperfect. Some places a little bit more than others. But it's important for you to not, first of all, not contaminate yourself with imperfections, and bring a little bit of your light to those who can listen. Now, you don't want to be the obnoxious guy giving lectures to all your friends and all your office buddies saying, you shouldn't drink, you have to stop cursing and that thing. But there's always a moment where you can say something that's enlightening, that raises the level just a little bit. And every time you do that, you're doing a charity for yourself and for those. Whether they listen or not, it's a little bit out of your control. But you are the example that's the light, wherever you are. Yay! Yes, in the back, Mr. Marcos.
A comment from Natalia, who is watching us through the internet, and she says that we have to remember that all virtues are exercises, and we have to practice them every day. They are an exercise of awareness and self-control. Natalia.
Very smart. And in fact, I had a...
Oh, I think I turned off.
You did. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginning of the fall, where we get so many people here, which is always wonderful. And Tiago gave us a very short list. That's all we have to do, folks. That's all we have to do. Now, it is difficult. But the difficulty is being at its highest level. It is actually very simple to be at the initial steps. So what I like to suggest is just a trial. I want to give you homework. Right? I want you to be more interactive with us in our lectures. This is not one way. I want to hear what you think, what you listen. So as a project manager, people know that those who know me, I love spreadsheets and lists. Right? So why not, for these 7 categories, put yourself a little homework and write some ideas and create columns. The first column is what is very easy to do for each one. So for example, in terms of docility, here's a suggestion. I will smile more to strangers. Very simple. It doesn't hurt, right? People might think you're weird sometimes, but I do this, and sometimes I get a smile back, and it feels good when that happens. Just an example. So that's the first column. Very simple. It's easy. The second column is not so easy, right? And each person, each one of you will have different things that you think you could be doing to improve yourself in being humble, for example. The next column is a little hard. The next one is very hard. And maybe the last column is, I must be kidding, right? Because I can never do this. 3 incarnations from now. But if you do this exercise, share it with us through email or website, and we'll put what we get back as a first slide next week. How about that? Put this as an exercise, and if you want to share your name, fine. If you want to do it anonymously, we can do that as well. We want to hear what you're getting out of these lessons. This sometimes can be very enlightening, but sometimes theoretical. Right? How do I change myself? How do I act upon? And we know that change is hard. We cannot change everything at the same time. Each one of us will find what's the best path for me to do. Remember, all we have to do, remember the joke, if a tiger is running after a bunch of people, how fast do you have to run? Well, just faster than the slowest guy, right? Our challenge is just to be a little bit better tomorrow than we are today. That's it. If we do this every day, it will add up. Okay, challenge made. Hopefully you guys will accept the challenge and let us know what you think. Thank you, Tiago. And we're going to talk more about, after we have the pass, around the activities at TSS. And one of the things that makes us so proud, and the pride is one of those things that can go either way, virtue or vice. But I'm so proud to see how the speakers at TSS have evolved and gotten so much better over the 3 years. And Tiago is a great example. I sit here and listen to him, and I'm just amazed of how he has grown up as a Spiritist speaker. And I will make a challenge to more of you to do the same.
I have good teachers.
Thank you.
I have good teachers. Thank
So
you.
now we'll bring down the lights. Thank you for everyone. The challenge is for anyone, even those at Facebook as well. Thank you very much. Hope to see you Wednesday, Thursdays, and next Sunday.